Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Today we'll study document 7, which is immunological memory. Before we start this lesson, we have to define two major concepts, which are the primary immune response and the secondary immune response. The primary immune response occurs when an antigen comes in contact with the immune system for the first time, whereas the secondary immune response occurs when the second time or third, fourth, etc. the person is exposed to the same antigen. When an antigen enters the first time, the immune response against this antigen is called the primary. The subsequent entry of the same antigen is called secondary. In this experiment, or in this lesson, we have to study the characteristics of the secondary immune response compared to the primary immune response. Here we have an experiment. Experiment number 1, we have injection of tetanus toxin into a rabbit. We note that there is death of the rabbit and there is no secretion of antibodies, anti-tetanus antibodies. By significance, we can conclude that tetanus toxin is fatal toxin. In the second experiment, we have another rabbit which is injected by tetanus toxoid. Tetanus toxoid, you have to know that toxoid is an attenuated toxin, يعني مخفف. Attenuated toxin, we know that there is survival and there is secretion of antibodies, which takes 1 week in order to increase, and it reaches approximately 1.2 AU as a maximum level. Then it decreases again. This rabbit is injected another time after 6 months by tetanus toxin, which is fatal toxin. But we notice that the rabbit did not die, but it's still alive. By significance, if we compare it to the two experiments 1 and 2, without previous injection of tetanus toxoid, in experiment 1, toxin is fatal, whereas with previous injection of when tetanus toxin is preceded by toxoid, there is no death. We can conclude that the attenuated toxin, which is toxoid, eliminates the virulent effect of virulent toxin. The attenuated toxin eliminates the fatal effect of virulent one. Now we have to compare the amount of antibodies secreted in the primary and in the secondary immune response. In the primary immune response, the antibodies needs 1 week in order to increase, which is called lag time, whereas in the second time it needs 3 days. So the second immune response is faster than the primary. And the first characteristic of the secondary immune response is that it is faster than the primary. To verify this point, you have to compare the lag time between the two, which is the time needed to secrete antibodies. This is the first characteristic. The second characteristic, we have to compare the maximum amount of antibodies secreted. In the primary immune response, the maximum antibodies secreted is 1.2 AU, whereas in the secondary immune response, the maximum amount approximately 3 AU, which means that the secondary immune response is 3 times greater than that of the primary, the amount of antibodies. So the second characteristic is that the secondary immune response is more amplified than the primary immune response. We have another characteristic, is that the secondary immune response is more persistent. And antibodies remains for more time in the body. to explain this point. Here we have this dotted line. This is called threshold amount of antibodies, which means that below this level the antibodies is not efficient or are not efficient or cannot protect our body. Above this level the antibodies can protect our body. Here we have in the primary immune response from 15 to 28 we have 13 days. So the antibody remains 13 days protecting our body. Whereas in the secondary immune response, here 5, here 35. So the antibodies remain 30 days protecting our body. Isn't for this reason the secondary immune response is more persistent or more durable, and it protects the body for more time since the amount of antibody is larger and need more time in order to be degraded. Isn't the three characteristics of the secondary immune response is that the secondary immune response is faster, more amplified, and more persistent, and you have to know how to justify each point. At the cellular level, in the primary immune response, if the immune response is humoral, this is B lymphocyte. In the primary, it makes clonal expansion. Some of the cells become memory, while the other differentiate into short-lived plasma cells that secrete free antibodies, as we discussed previously. And in the second immune response, you have to know that the memory cells are the cells that makes clonal expansion. Since their number is greater than the naive B lymphocyte, these memory cells makes also clonal expansion into memory and plasma cells again that also secrete free antibodies. If you compare the number of effector cells or plasma cells in the secondary and the primary, you notice that the secondary immune response, the number of plasma cells are much greater than that of primary immune response, which means that they have the ability to secrete more antibodies, and this explains why the secondary immune response is more amplified. It's more faster than the primary, since the clonal expansion or mitosis of memory cells is much faster than that of a naive B lymphocyte. Okay.